Thank you for attending this session on road mapping for capability maturity. My name is Karina Ahmed. I am a consultant at Avolution, which has 20 years of experience leading in the enterprise architecture fields. Today, I will start with an overview of road mapping. Then I will get into capability models and maturity. Next, we will look into assessing the capabilities to determine their maturity. And we'll see how this assessment can serve as the focal point for creating a target state and anchoring the comparison to the current states. Next, we will see how the previous steps facilitate sign-off and set the foundation for planning changes. I'm going to start out with roadmaps. Road mapping is key to improving the enterprise. Roadmaps can have many drivers and uses, such as increasing efficiency and reducing cost, responding to customer needs, and managing risks and security or compliance, and more. Through road mapping, we build a plan for what needs to be updated, retired, or implemented. However, it can be chaotic to plan a target state without a clear goal in mind. Furthermore, it is difficult to compare architectural states without a clear focal point. Capability maturity can be used to anchor the roadmap and orient it around business needs. Road mapping allows us to model changes and benefits over time. Part of this involves capturing business-relevant metrics such as costs, reliability, risk, and complexity. This allows for us to understand what aspects of the current state need to be changed. Calculating the estimated values for the target state then allows us to compare the current to the target state. Once the target is finalized, an implementation roadmap is laid out with lifecycle and implementation date information. These business-level metrics can be calculated through algorithms, which may include pre-built algorithms as well as no-code algorithms. No-code is already a well-established tool that you can add to your toolset to support capability evaluation and road mapping. First, we need to be able to identify areas that require improvement and adopt a scope to understand the current state metrics. We will do so with capabilities and capability maturity. The KPIs produced by algorithms can be understood through a variety of lenses, but the viewpoint of capabilities can be particularly insightful. Capabilities are elemental building blocks of what a business does or can do. As an abstraction of underlying functionality, capabilities typically require a combination of people, processes, and technology to achieve. A key benefit of doing capability modeling within enterprise architecture is the ability to link capabilities to other elements of the repository, such as the underlying processes, people, and technology. When modeling, starting with an existing capability model saves time, energy, and cost. Examples of capability models include BizBox and Buy-in, as well as the use of the APQC process classification framework as a capability model. Capability maturity models give us a path for capability roadmaps. There are a few capability maturity models. Likely the most well-known is the Capability Maturity Model Integration, or CMMI, which was developed by the Software Engineering Institute at Carnegie Mellon University alongside the US government. It is a process and behavioral model that helps organizations streamline process improvement and encourage productive, efficient behaviors that decrease risks in software, product, and service development. The CMMI model breaks down organizational maturity into 5 levels, seen here. For businesses that embrace CMMI, the goal is to raise the organization up to level 5, the optimizing maturity level. The COBIT performance model, or CPM, largely aligns with and extends CMMI concepts. Users of the CPM may leverage the technology risk assessment to evaluate their capability model. In today's presentation, I won't be ascribing to any one framework for capability maturity, though I do encourage you to draw from the frameworks available. An example of something that you might come up with is also presented here as basic, intact, and excellent. With a capability model established and maturity framework selected, the next step is to evaluate the maturity of the capabilities. The maturity status will be the foundation of the roadmap. A key place to start when evaluating capabilities is to get an understanding of the opinion of stakeholders. While you can understand stakeholder opinions through tools such as workshops and meetings, you could also opt to save time by allowing them to input their opinions directly via a survey-like mechanism. Be sure to make it easy for them by providing them with drop-down options, descriptions of the fields, and contextual information about the capabilities. In the example shown, the stakeholders are able to input their opinions on as many capabilities and any capabilities that they wish using these predefined fields. These scores, which can vary across the users inputting them, should then be averaged together, ideally by using no-code algorithms. This way, the opinions of a variety of stakeholders can be summarized into a single score or status. The evaluation of capabilities does not need to depend exclusively on direct evaluation. Richer and perhaps more honest insight can be found by evaluating the elements that compose the capabilities, such as the processes, applications, and departments involved in that capability. These evaluations can then be attributed and summarized at the capability level to determine capability maturity. Any scoring or status property on processes can be attributed up to the capabilities that they support. If no such data is available, you can start by simply evaluating whether processes are modeled in a shared repository, which can be a positive indicator itself of the process maturity. You can also evaluate process maturity through such means as calculating the ratios of automated and manual tasks in a process. We can also use performance metrics to understand process resource utilization and how well the process is supported. Of course, you can evaluate your capabilities without looking at these aspects, but they can provide additional insights. Garnering information on capability maturity from supporting applications can be a quick win, as initiatives such as application portfolio management may have already calculated scores and produced evaluations. These scores, such as business fit and technical fit, can then be attributed to the capabilities that the applications support. This provides an indication of how well the capability is supported by underlying technology, and it gives us an indication of where modernization efforts might be most needed. Once the capabilities have been evaluated, it is time to summarize the information and report on it. Summarizing the information can be done through no-code algorithms, which enable disparate information to be summarized into capability maturity levels. These maturity levels will be concisely communicated through a heat map depicting capabilities by maturity. Stakeholders will be able to stakeholders will best be able to understand the capability maturity if the heat map is paired with views of other capability metrics, such as costs. When possible, encourage the stakeholders to interact dynamically with the report. This can take the form of applying live filters or drilling down to view the composition of the capability and understand the strengths and weaknesses of supporting elements. Reporting on the capability maturity in this way enables identification of capabilities to target for improvements, which can be planned out in a target state architecture. In our target state, we will be building a future with more mature capabilities. There are many aspects that this may include. It may involve designing new systems or products, building new services and processes, and hitting specific goals and objectives. Let's look at an example of maturing and modernizing a customer service capability by improving the way that checks are deposited. In the current state, the customer must travel to a physical bank and interact with a representative to cash the check. In the target state, we want to enable mobile deposit. To support this, checks need to be captured with the mobile app, which must be camera compatible. The signed check needs to be captured and evaluated in a system. Processes need to be in place to review submissions, and artificial intelligence might be considered to increase efficiency. Once the logical architecture is in place, we must plan out technologies to support the mobile app, capture and store the images and data generated, assign roles to the processes, and provide supporting infrastructure where needed. By documenting these changes, the target state becomes an actionable architecture connected with traceable links across purposes and domains. This enables a comparison of target and current state and provides a blueprint for planning and implementing changes. The next step is to compare the current state to the target state. A report providing that comparison is shown here in a stakeholder accessible dashboard. In the dashboard, key measures such as cost and availability are prominently reported for comparison, as is the expected improvement in the capability maturity. Thus, the value proposition of the target state is clear. Direct and granular comparison is also provided through the diagrams, where differences between the architectures are highlighted. Such direct comparisons facilitate the identification of gaps, which architects can use to plan work packages to implement changes to address those gaps. When this reporting is available, collaborative, and accessible, stakeholders participate, commit, and may even get collaboratively involved. Once stakeholders have signed off on the target state architecture, it is time to plan the transition and implementation. This often requires creating a transition state architecture, which includes objects being retired or refreshed, as well as new implementations that are added as part of the target. This should also include the defined work package or project and a timeline of the changes. Capturing the transition architecture will enable you to build detailed roadmaps that indicate the timelines for implementation of changes, along with the life cycles of impacted elements. In the dynamic Gantt chart displayed here, we can see the life cycles of impacted elements displayed with heat mapping based on life cycle status. Through this view, stakeholders understand the timeline for retiring old systems, bringing new systems online, updating existing systems, and incorporating new processes and policies. Underpinning this visual is a transition state architecture that lays out the plan for implementation. Implementing the planned changes will enhance the maturity of the capability, improving the overall enterprise. By using capabilities to anchor our roadmap, we have a clear focal point to compare architectural states and a defined goal for enterprise improvements. Key to building stakeholder buy-in is the ability to demonstrate value by comparing metrics across architectural states. Then, in order to facilitate implementation of these changes, the implementation plan should be captured along with lifecycle dates. These general principles can be used to add structure and metrics to your road mapping initiatives. So now I'll open it up to questions that you can put into the chat. All right, so there's a question in the chat about how to identify business capabilities. So one of the ways to identify business capabilities is by using an existing business capability model and socializing that among stakeholders. So that then means identifying how those capabilities are done by identifying the processes related to them, applications related to them, and so on. But using one of those existing models as a first step saves a lot of time instead of having to go through and start from scratch to identify those business capabilities. So there's another question about determining whether, using the example that I used here, so determining whether a mobile checking app is the right decision. And that absolutely is something that would be supported by doing this type of road mapping. So when doing this type of road mapping, when you build out that target state, that doesn't mean that you have decided already that that target state is what you're going to do. Road mapping in this way allows you to build out the target state, understand everything that goes into it. So in this example, understand what would go into building a mobile deposit application and supporting that and having the risks associated with that and the cost of those risks and everything else. And you can then compare that target state to the current state. So using those KPIs to really make a decision and see where those trade-offs are. So this road mapping process absolutely would help you determine whether that is the right decision in the first place. There's another question about what's the most common and biggest mistake that companies make when road mapping. I think one of the common mistakes that is made when road mapping is not defining an end goal or not defining a focal point over which to have a plan around. So it can be really overwhelming if you're just trying to look at improving everything or trying to see what everything would look like 5 years down the road. But when you break it down towards things that require improvement and add some measurable aspects to that, then you have a plan to go off of. It's really key to make sure that there are measurable comparisons to be able to make between that current state and that target state. There's another question about Abacus being able to integrate with other applications used for application portfolio management. Abacus does often contain application portfolio management and the work done in it directly, but it also can integrate with other tools. So there's an out-of-the-box sync with ServiceNow, as well as other integrations out of the box, and an open REST API with read and write capabilities to do such integrations. And for another question, what are the most important variables to measure capabilities? I'm not sure if there's a single most important variable, but having some measure of whether we are meeting the goals through that capability in terms of providing customer service or making sales, as well as making sure that there is actual technical support for that and process support for the capability. Understanding those three factors, regardless of how you sort of get to those three factors, I'd say would be key. I think that is all of the questions and about all of the time that we have. So thank you all for listening.